Hello aspirants and welcome again to Legacy IAS Academy. In this lecture, we will be dealing with the possibility of Israel, which is possibly preparing for striking Iran's nuclear facility. Now, why is that so? Why a nuclear Iran is an issue for Israel? All this and much more is what we will see in this lecture. So let's get started. So if we go back in history, we will realize that when you talk about Israel, there is of course a conflict that is going on, or a war in fact is going on. So Israel and Palestinian war that is going on. So what is this all about? So the area which is considered to be sacred for both the Jews, in fact Muslims, in fact also for the Christian, that is Jerusalem. Now everyone wants to stake claim in Jerusalem and also the present day Israel, Palestine, or the Gaza Strip, that is. So the entire region of the Gaza Strip, or presently which is occupied by Hamas, as well as the other various regions which are controlled by it and also consist of a lot of Palestinians. On all these regions, the conflict or a war is ongoing. Now what has happened historically is whenever there has been a war, whenever there has been a conflict with, for example, the Israel-Palestinian conflict, there has been supports that have come to either side. For example, the US has sided from the side of Israel. At the same time, the Arab world has sided from the side of Palestine. Now the same has happened previously, the same thing is happening even now, wherein Iran is also fighting a proxy war against Israel, which has happened previously also. So what has happened? Iran has sided with Palestine and has fought against Israel. Now, if Iran continues to be a nuclear power and further enriches uranium and further increases its nuclear ambit, what is going to happen tomorrow in the Israel-Palestinian conflict? Iran will enter, and you would not want a nuclear power state to enter the war, because a nuclear state can of course carry out nuclear attacks. As a result of which, Israel is preparing, or it is possibly said, it is said that possibly it is preparing for a strike on nuclear facilities of Iran. However, many would argue in that case, the other country should also not be a nuclear state. Why only you have the right to be a nuclear state and not us? For example, that can be argued. In fact, the Iran and US nuclear talks that are ongoing, wherein US wants Iran to curb its nuclear weaponization. Now Iran would of course question, then in that case, why don't you do the same, right? Because then Iran also would say, I also have the right. So there are various ambiguities in this. Right? So there are ambiguities because each state will then start saying, even I should have the nuclear power. Right? That is the issue. So if Iran continues to be a nuclear state, that would be a problem for Israel. So possibly that is why Israel is going to target the nuclear installations of Iran. Now what's the news here? What has happened? How have we come to know that Israel is about to target? Because the US intelligence has obtained certain information or intelligence which is actually indicating that there might be a possible Israel strike on Iran's nuclear facilities. So it's a US intelligence that has informed that. Now, what factor decided that whether Israel would actually attack or not? Will Israel actually attack? There's a possibility. But what can make it more possible is possibly the failure of the US-Iran nuclear talks. If the US-Iran nuclear talk probably fails, that will lead to an even higher chance that Israel would attack Iran. Now, why is that the case? Let us understand. First, how was this information gathered by US intelligence? This information was gathered by understanding the movement. It was first gathered by intercepting the messages from senior Israeli officials, intersecting all the communications and observing the military movements that may point to the possible strike. So 2-3 things were done over here: interception of the messages of the senior Israeli officers, communication was intercepted, at the same time understanding the kind of movement that is happening over here, which indicates probably they are moving things closer to this side of the border in order to attack Iran, not Iran in general, but particularly the nuclear installations of Iran, which gave a hint that this is possibly the case. Now, what is the assumption? The basis of the assumption is, of course, the movement of air munitions. The way you can attack the air through air, for example, the jets, the missiles, etc. The air munition has been shifted, and completion of the air drill as a part of military preparation. So when you want to carry out an attack, just before the attack you might also want to carry out a drill. Now mind you, drill is not necessarily every time just before the attack. The drill is a very regular occurrence which keeps the army, the military on their toes and keeps them sharpened. So that is of course the reason, as a result of which you would not be able to identify whether that drill was actually just a drill or something more than that. So that is why this drill is being looked in connection with the shifting of the air munition. Both the things happening simultaneously gives the basis for coming up with a theory that it is possible that Israel would attack Iran's nuclear facilities. Now, what is Iran's stand on nuclear weapon? Now see, recently USA had come out and said that Iran should stop enriching more uranium. It should stop the enrichment of uranium. Why enrichment? Because for nuclear weapons, nuclearization, you need highly enriched uranium. The unenriched, the non-enriched or low-grade uranium will not be used in the weapons. It can be used to convert it into energy, but in weapons you need highly enriched uranium. For that, from that we can understand whether this country is going to use uranium for domestic purposes, energy generation, or for weaponization. So since higher and highly enriched uranium is used in weaponization, US had asked Iran to stop enriching uranium. Now this is what the ask of USA was. But then what was Iran's reply? So Iran's supreme leader, that is Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, what he said, that this demand of US is excessive and outrageous. Why is this outrageous? Of course, because US itself is a nuclear power. US itself enriches its uranium, and then US is the one asking us to not enrich uranium. That is not just excessive, but it is outrageous. Now, because of this kind of a reply, it is being estimated that there is a high possibility that this Iran-US nuclear talks may actually fail, as a result of which the possibility of Israel attacking will increase. Right. At the same time, Ayatollah Khamenei also expressed doubt about whether the ongoing nuclear talks with US would actually succeed or not. Very clearly, because these demands are quite outrageous, so Iran may not be eager to basically carry forward this task, this particular talk, under such circumstances of stopping the uranium enrichment altogether. Now, what are these US-Iran nuclear talks all about? Now, since Iran has nuclearized, there is in fact an Iran nuclear deal also in place with respect to the other European countries' involvement as well, wherein Iran had promised that we will let you inspect our nuclear installations so that you understand that we are not increasing our weapon heads of nuclear weapons. Now, up till 2018, Iran actually abided by this. It allowed inspection, etc. But in 2018, USA unilaterally walked out of this particular Iran nuclear deal. That also happened under Donald Trump's regime only. And presently, as it stands, USA has imposed sanctions on Iran. Sanctions on Iran means it has sort of kept sanctions on Iran, wherein they will not be trading with Iran. There are secondary sanctions also. USA has also put sanctions on other countries who would trade with Iran. So all these things like that, USA has tried to squeeze out Iran. Right. So the present talks that are going on is with respect to removing those sanctions, so that economically Iran can start doing better, because this has squeezed out Iran. So that is why the talks is to remove those sanctions. But why would USA remove those sanctions? In return, Iran needs to make certain promises and certain changes with respect to the nuclear facilities and the uranium enrichment that is ongoing. So what USA will provide here is the removal of the sanction. What Iran can provide here is denuclearization or stopping the enrichment of uranium. Why? So that it ensures that it is not going to create nuclear warheads. But since it has been claimed to be outrageous demand, possibly this nuclear talk may fail, and then subsequently there can be a possibility wherein Israel attacks Iran's nuclear facility. However, Iran is also alleged to have nuclear weapons, as a result of which attacking with nuclear weapon is possibly still quite a long shot, but as per US intelligence, that is a possibility in the near future. Thank you.